Okay, friends, welcome to a special episode of the Prayer Focus podcast. These Tuesdays, usually, I do a podcast with my friend, sometimes friends, Jeremy in Roseburg, Oregon. And I've been talking with my friend Mitch for a long time about maybe doing a podcast together because we both have been championing this message of beloved identity and sonship in the marketplace for several years. Although we've just met a few months ago, it seems like the things that we're going after are relatively the same. I'm going to let him describe all of the things that he gives, but he's just recently written a book. I'm going to put the link to his book in the notes, but it's called Gravel, Grit, and Glory. He does a regular rhythm of men's retreats up in the wilderness called Just Add Wilderness. An amazing man of God, an amazing leader in the business world, and I'm excited to have this conversation today. He just drove up from his home office to come and meet me in my home office, which is right here in my. As I've told you many times before, if I turned and panned the camera around, you would see my library and my sit down office and lounge where I hang out, my man cave down here. And so Mitch came up and joined me in my man cave today, and we started talking and sharing ideas and thoughts. And I was like, oh man, this is just too good. Let's jump over in the studio real quick and let's just record a quick podcast. I don't know where we're going because this is very organic. I don't know how long this one is going to be. We'll see when I push stop at the end. We'll see if it was a 20-minute or a 40 minute. But we just wanted to. I wanted to introduce you to my friend Mitch, and I wanted to just take a moment and visit with you all about what God is doing in the faith and work space around this idea. And we were talking a while ago, and I'm getting way ahead of myself, so let me push pause on what we're going to talk about and let me introduce to you my friend Mitch. So Mitch, tell us about what you do, how you do it, where just give us who is Mitch.
Yeah, Mitch. Yeah, thank you very much, Scott. This is awesome. It's We have kindred man caves. I'm loving the environment down here. It's very similar to my own that we kind of craft our own little spaces to be very similar in that respect. Um, no, I'm a man of God. I'm a guy who loves sonship. I feel like that is the message that has been burning within my soul for many years. And so the first time you and I connected, I was like, he's saying the same things I'm saying, and it's we're not reading from the same books. We're hearing from the same Lord, and it's just an amazing kind of thing to kind of connect kindredly in that way. I believe it's a message that needs to be spoken louder and louder and louder than it
Maybe
is.
somebody needs to write a book about
Yes.
it.
Some books in the way. But yeah, just launched the book, Gravel, Grit, and Glory Navigating Life's Wilderness. It's an invitation to kind of get off the path and to kind of get out into the woods. And it's a book about struggles that we face in life. And so I recount an adventure I had as a young man growing up, and I walk you through the whole process of this adventure and all the life lessons and the biblical principles that come out that we face, and kind of how to navigate this wilderness that we walk through in just daily life. And so it was a beautiful process. I would say writing a book reveals more things that you thought you had healed than you anything else I've ever experienced. I've gone through deliverance, I've gone through prayer ministries, and all that kind of stuff. But when you can sit down with the Lord and start writing out your stories, he reminds you of things and he brings things up, and it's like, yeah, you're not quite done with that yet. We need to spend some time here. It's like, oh,
I've heard people say inner healing is much like an onion. It's layer by
yeah,
layer, and every layer makes you weep a little.
yeah. I was like, God, I've already prayed about this. What do you mean I gotta
Ah,
still forgive my father for more stuff? Like,
oh,
there it is. There it is.
oh.
That comes out. Um, 2019, I received a vision from the Lord, and it was a mandate to serve men and to help men step out of a paralyzed state and to slay this giant like a Goliath that is
Mhm,
keeping men captive. And
mhm,
so from 2019 on, I've been focused on serving men in a men's ministry kind of way, and that's called Just at Wilderness. And so lead those men's retreats, and that's just a phenomenal process. There's nothing I think that helps men feel strong and vulnerable at the same time as a campfire. And so if you can
yes.
get men around a campfire, they feel strong but they can be as vulnerable as they need to get healing.
I've told my wife for years I'm gonna make a cologne, men's cologne that is campfire,
Yes.
smells like campfire. It's because something just happens. You get that smoke in your face,
Yes.
the smell, and men around is just fish stories grow.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you just watch resilience build as they got smoke in their eyes and they don't want to move. They're just sitting there grinning it and just telling their story. They're just revealing everything that's in their heart. I've never seen something give men that kind of space to be who
Mm,
God has called them to be is like a campfire does.
I'm in. When can I go?
Let's go tonight.
Come on. I'm
We
actually
live so close. We could
I
just
know, right? Yeah. 10 minutes. Mount Hermon. I can be on top of Mount
yeah.
Hermon in 10
Yeah.
minutes.
I go up there to pray quite a bit, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome. Well, let's talk about our conversation today because we started off talking a little bit about how I was seeing the remarkable journey of businesses and teams that are overtly pursuing sonship and beloved identity compared to the ones that are more faith adjacent and are trying
Mm-hmm.
to camouflage this under the guise of leadership and personal development. And so you began. So let's just take off the conversation from there. What have you seen that God is doing in the marketplace around this conversation of us being created in the image of God? And when we actually embrace that and understand our identity and step into sonship, something happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll preface this by I've been an entrepreneur for 10 plus years, almost 15 years. And 2 years ago, the Lord told me He was calling me to start to raise up kings, that I was not going to be the forefront. I was going to go work with other people
Mm,
and help other people build organizations and help serve other kings and raise up their companies.
mm,
And so through this process, I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of clients. I've been invited to a
mm,
lot of rooms that I had no business being invited into. The favor, the influence, just the magnitude. People can literally move markets because of who they are
mm,
and stuff. And so when you get invited into these places, there's a reverence, there's a trust that's kind of there. And so when they ask for advice and you're able to give it,
mm,
when there's already an established assumed trust because you're in
mm,
this room, and because you're in this room, what you say carries more weight than it does anywhere else.
mm.
It's a very unique. I'm sure
Yeah.
you've
Oh,
experienced
oh,
that with the CEOs and everything
absolutely.
you work with. When you're able to kind of speak into the life of a very influential king, we'll just call it, it's amazing how hungry they are for fathers, for people who
Mm,
can say, give me wisdom because I have so much weight and I want to
yeah.
make the right decision.
Yeah.
My decisions impact, they expand, they know there's exponential impact to my decisions of what happens.
Mm,
And so as we were just talking in the chairs and just kind of chatting, I've had the opportunity to work with some amazing people, and these people don't necessarily aren't experts in their industry. They
mm.
start in a garage. They're powerful. They have passion. They can cast
Unfinished
vision.
basement.
Unfinished basements. Yes, they have vision. They
Mm,
have passion. They're looking for clarity. They're seeking it, and
mm,
sometimes the clarity comes in the path. So
mm.
just remember, it doesn't always have to
Oh,
have clarity
that is a
to go.
profound statement. The what did you say it
The
again?
clarity comes in the path.
Oh my gosh, that's profound.
Um, but I watched these guys. They built this organization and they focused on culture
Mm-hmm.
and they focused on leadership
Mm,
and they focused on family. And with
mm.
those ingredients, they built an organization where within 5 years they went from garage to an eight-figure buyout.
And they knew nothing about the industry in which they were serving.
Nothing about the industry that they were in.
That's profound.
And so they just like, hey, we've got these ideas, we see in a trend, we can capitalize on it.
And
But
that's
it
not to say
wasn't,
they didn't learn about their
oh,
industry,
absolutely.
just they began with baseline.
They weren't an expert in their field and were got in the
That is
field
profound
and dominated the field,
because
became the
they
nation's
concentrated.
largest in the field because they concentrated on culture, on family, on leadership, on making it a place where employees wanted to come, not
Mm,
just to get a paycheck, but to become a better person. If I go to work today, I know there's going to be something there that grows me as a person. So I'm a better husband. I'm a better father. I'm a better person in my community, in my church. It grew them to be at work.
I'll bet their work attendance was higher than
Yeah.
X company down the road.
I mean, we were just talking about this not too long ago, and some of the things that they were talking about was just profound, profound. And they wanted to make sure that We invested in you like you were going to be here forever, but not expecting you to be here forever. Who does that?
That's so good. I just was one of our clients has a pretty successful insurance agency in a relatively small town in PNW. And that's what we were just creating some programming around. How can we create this programming? And we came up with some brilliant ideas, but the what drove us through to begin building this blueprint of how we're investing into his employees was when they leave, does their resume look better than when they arrived?
Right? Yeah. Even their personal. I mean, are you a better husband? I mean, I would. That's one thing I would love to track. Marriages. What's the divorce rate within my company?
Mm-hmm.
Do we monitor that? Is that a metric that we can watch and say, are we extending marriages now because you're employed here and you're getting mentored here, you're getting fathered here
Mm-hmm.
inside of this organization? I think
Yeah.
that would be a fun one to kind of put up there on the KPI sheet.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Huh, that's so interesting. So what are some of the things that they did to kind of to accentuate that, to kind of underscore that idea of investing
Yeah, we
into their employees?
I mentioned something that was kind of key, and I don't know if I'm sure hopefully some of you caught it, but they invested in them like they were going to be there forever, but they didn't expect them to be
Mm,
there forever. So,
yeah.
what do we do when we have expectations on people that get unmet? Does it create
Mm-hmm.
friction? Does it create resistance? Does it create resentment? If I have employees, I've invested XYZ number of dollars
Mm-hmm.
into you, into training programs, into whatever, and you just left, and now I'm feeling hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have the right expectation for the right relationship or the right position that they hold within my company? If I can still pour into you with no expectation of you staying forever, it's just because of who I am,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to pour into you like my father pours into me,
Yeah.
what is that going to do? But how is that going to relieve some of that stress on the
Mm-hmm.
CEO side of the desk
Yeah.
of getting upset when people just leave?
Yeah.
They mentioned something that struck me too, because one of the things that they wanted to watch between the difference in organizations that focused on culture
Mm-hmm.
was how people left.
Mm-hmm.
Did they, there's a trend in the world that was it called the silent quitting or quiet quitting,
Yes.
where they
Quiet
just
quitting.
kind
Yeah.
of
I said.
disappear.
Yep.
Like, hey, one day I'm gone. I don't talk to you about it. I'm unhappy. I don't say anything about it. I'm just one day I'm gone. Well, what happens if these employees love you so much and you've invested in their lives so much without this expectation or pressure that I have to be or do something I'm not ready to be?
You're right.
But now that I have another opportunity, I come seek your counsel. Not to convince me to stay, but is this the right move for me? Because now I see you as a
Yes.
mentor. I see you as a father in my life.
Mm.
And I can leave the organization with honor. They can bless me as I go because they know not everybody's supposed to be here. Not
Forever.
everybody is supposed to be here forever.
Right.
Some people are here for a season. I think of Matthew 20 when we were talking about this as we were sitting down, the hirelings.
Yes.
They came in, they negotiated a wage, they did their job. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
There you have people in your organization whose roles are hirelings. They're not there to help you build an empire.
Mm-hmm.
They're there to support their family through a season until the next thing that comes in their life.
Yeah.
If you can sow into them like they're a
Mm-hmm.
son, they're going to come to you and seek that advice, and seek that guidance. And you're going to create this massive wave of loyalty with people because they're not feeling this unmet expectation upon them that they have to be something that they're not supposed to be.
Yeah. Wow. And you were telling me there's three kind of levels of team that were kind of creating this culture within our organization. So what are the three levels? And you just started one, so
Yeah.
just say it from the beginning though. What?
So hireling, servant, and son. And
Mm,
you'll start to notice within your organization, if you kind of sit back and do an evaluation of those who are there just to help you serve they're there to work the field. Plain and simple.
they're there for a paycheck.
There's nothing
They
wrong
do
with
their
that.
job.
There to get a paycheck. They're going to do their job well if they're treated well. They're going to do the job well if they're respected. They're going to want to do better the more respected they are.
But they're looking for the next opportunity.
Your expectation of them is not to become a son.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not looking for your loyalty, so deep loyalty to me, which is where I think a lot of organizations get it wrong. They want everybody to be so just blood and tears and sweat loyal. That's not their role. They're just
Mm.
there to help you keep the fields worked.
And the disconnection in expectations and results that flow is because we're trying to treat hirelings like a son, and they were never ever going to be a son.
Correct. Correct.
Wow. That's just, I like, this is helping me. I don't know if it's helping you, but this is helping me. Okay, good. So then a
Servant.
servant.
Servant, the next one. Servant is when there's more buy-in. You're starting to get more of their heart, but there's still a lack of trust. So when you move from a hireling and you start to get invested in, you start to see a culture. You start to see these guys care about my family. They're asking about my wife. And you start to like, okay, I'm gonna invest a little bit back into the company. I'm gonna give more of myself. I'm gonna go above and beyond. And you start to buy in more. But there's still a little disconnect. There's still not a complete trust there. But that servant category is going to be a majority of the people in the organization. If you can get more servants than you have hirelings, you're going to have a very, very healthy organization. You're going to have people who want to get there. They want to be led. They're willing to give of themselves. You're not having to pull, and you'll get more volunteers for the projects, for the different tasks. Moving people from the hirelings to the servants is great, but you can't place that demand where you need to be, and if you're less than, if you're not.
Does an organization have to have hirelings and servants, or can we just not hire hirelings at all?
I have yet to see it. I'm sure the ideal scenario would be wonderful, and I hopefully, because even biblically, you have some people when you're released from servitude. No, I still want to be a servant. I want to be a slave here for the rest of my life. Go ahead and mark my ear. I want that.
Bond servant.
Yeah, the bond servant.
Yes.
And so ideally, you'll kind of get that, but you're going to have hirelings. You're going to have people who would just keep the wheels moving, just keep it going, and that's okay. That's okay. Obviously, your organization size is going to depend, play more of how many of each of these categories you have. But
Right. Okay, so then the last one is sons. Are those going to be managers, supervisors, people that would carry more, or does that not have to do anything with management?
not necessarily, because I've seen and come across lots of servants who are excellent at leading and taking care of people. And so I think of Abraham, and his name is, I think it's like Zechariah or something like that. Abraham's servant who was supposed to take over before Isaac was born.
Oh yeah, yeah,
He was supposed to inherit everything.
yeah.
And he was the one who went out and found his replacement's wife
Yes.
and kind of established that he was no longer going to inherit.
Mm-hmm.
If Isaac had never married, if all that
Right.
kind of stuff never happened, there's probably a chance he still got it.
Mm-hmm.
It usually needed to go to heirs and sons and all those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
But you have this man who was so beloved to his father, the vision, so loyal that he was going to inherit everything. But even in the face of when he was not, he still had the heart to say, I'm going to help the son now take over the company, take over the family. I'm going to do whatever I can to ensure his success because my heart is still so yours.
Wow.
My role is just not to be that son.
I've thought through that a little bit, but maybe not in that much of an impactful, profound way. That is super profound. I'm dropping his name right now too, but that is like I never thought of it that way in with that much clarity before. So that's amazing. So servants can be managers because they're taking on this fiduciary responsibility, meaning I'm trying to figure out what's most beneficial to you. So servants can be managers, supervisors, people in charge. But being a son doesn't necessarily identify management, but it does identify an inheritance.
Right. And I don't even say sons always inherit that company.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times you raise up sons and they go somewhere else.
Yikes.
And that can be a tough one because then you've really invested your heart, your soul, your relationship into a son. But the goal of the son is to raise him up. So the goal of a father is to fulfill the life of the son, right? To do it, to provide an inheritance. The goal of a son is to fulfill the call in the father's life. So you'll find these people within your organization who are sons who are bought in. You have their heart, you have their trust, you have their allegiance, their loyalty 100%. They will do anything for you. If you treat that correctly, they will continue to grow in that and continue to help you fulfill the call in your life.
Yeah.
Even if their call is not within that organization. If you disconnect or you pervert that relationship, where now you're trying to make them into something, you're almost creating an Ishmael. Like, I need you to be this for me. And they're like, I'm just not that. You have to let them kind of be who God has called them to be.
When a hireling has tried to make when you try to make a son out of a hireling, you create an Ishmael.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so tell me, you've seen this in organizations, you've seen CEOs, you
Mhm.
identified talent.
Oh yeah.
This guy can do anything I ask him to do, he'll get it done no matter what it is, man or woman.
Hmm.
You try to force them to become this thing that you need to fulfill this hole in your life, this void that you've got in a leadership role. I need help is kind of one of the most biggest things these guys are saying. Whether they say it publicly or privately in a phone call on a basement, like, I need help. Can you help me understand this? Well, when you try to force that on somebody, you're creating your own Ishmael. Sons I have found come to you already tested, already proven. I haven't seen too many in the marketplace that were born in the house and raised in the house. And maybe you've seen it a little bit differently. In my
Hmm.
experience right now, genuine sons usually are tested and born somewhere else and then come to you. God has brought you a son. Like, I am
Hmm.
sending you a son, not one you tried to raise.
Hmm.
I'm bringing you a son. And
Hmm.
those are the ones that will take your organization to the next level if you let them.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's so good and profound. And I just think that there's this space that I'm recognizing now, and maybe you have not had the same experience, but one of the things that I'm recognizing right now is this conversation of categorization and understanding the different kinds of team that is in our midst is probably one of the major tripping hazards
Mm-hmm.
of actually seeing our companies flourish and develop to the level of which we know that they can and that God has given us to.
Mm-hmm.
So let's transition a little bit, not too. I don't want to stray too far because I think this is important to keep this in our forefront. But I think that one of the things that I'm understanding more and more is accidental excellence. This is what I mean. The more I'm understanding who God made me to be, and the more I'm understanding my true identity and my position as a son,
Mm-hmm.
the more I'm doing things accidentally on purpose. And so I have a friend who's an incredible physique, and he's a gym rat. I mean, he just loves being, and he's a personal trainer. And he comes over, and whenever we're together, I haven't seen him in a while, but when we lived near each other, we don't live near each other now, but when we used to live near each other, he would come into my house, and because he's in my house and near me, like I feel better about. There's some people that make you go, oh, I'm embarrassed right now. I mean, and they make you feel like, self-condemning. Like, but this wasn't his persona at all. He was just confident. He was good at what he does. He was happy. He was joyful. And when you were in his presence, you just felt better about yourself.
Right.
And
Right.
like I want to like run through a wall or something. I want to go to the gym, another 2 times this week or something like that. Just because I'm in his presence, he makes me, and it's not anything that he did. He's not trying to inspire me. He's just fully him.
Right.
His conversations talk around fitness and diet and different things that he's doing, but he's not trying to promote his flavor of experience. He's just comfortable in his own skin. He's just unapologetically him, and it makes me feel better, and it makes me want to do better because he's just who he is. And as I was walking away from that experience, I was kind of just talking to the Lord about that experience. I was like, Lord, why is that? What is that? And I heard clearly from the Lord is that as when you understand who you are, you will accidentally be excellent.
Mm. Let's let that one sail off for a minute.
I'd love for you to comment on sonship and beloved identity, on things that we're finding ourselves in the marketplace, is when we're truthfully embracing who we are. I love Jimmy Winship, one of my favorite speakers. I love his identity exchange and what he's doing. He's overtly a Christian, but he goes into these non-Christian environments and he helps people identify their
Mm.
true self, not their persona, not who they think they need to be for their
Yes.
company, but they're embracing their true identity of who God made them to be. I think there's something to be really cultivated here don't stray too far from the conversation we just had, because we need to understand who our crew is and understand that we're going after culture and all of that. But let's just talk for a little bit about identity and beloved identity as a son of God in the marketplace and sonship. Do you think that everything that I just said is true?
Absolutely. I think it's a combination of integrity and identity.
Mm,
And so authenticity can be twisted and it can be used as a crutch. It can be used as a mask. This is my
mm,
authentic self. And that can be your own version of what you want to project, of who
mm,
you think that you might want to be, but that may not be who God has designed you to be.
mm,
And so we can be authentic and be frauds. Having integrity and authenticity is a different level because
mm,
now you have to own it. I have to actually be living this. I have to, it's like, I think what you're saying with his excellence, it's not because he was anything other than having integrity in who he was.
mm.
If I can embrace my identity with integrity, what does that produce? We'll go through another I. I'm a marketer, an inspired life.
Yeah.
And what I do inspires because there's
Mhm,
integrity matching my lifestyle. It's not something where I want to be seen for anything else. I'm guessing it's just who this gentleman was.
mhm,
And there was an integrity piece to that because there was a true, honest look at who he is and a peeling away of everything I'm not. And now that I've embraced it and I can own it and I can be true and accountable to it, then
mhm.
it's natural.
Yeah. So talk to the idea for a minute. My friend just making me feel better about myself and wanting me to do better just because he was naturally who he was.
So, as leaders in organizations, as leaders in your home, leaders to small groups, leaders in the community, whatever it is, the more that you can have integrity in your identity, the more it's going to attract that in other people. You want it to become more of who God created you to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would
Yeah,
say it would,
absolutely.
you know, there's a fire kindled in all of us, and there's some
Mm-hmm.
people come that flame that fire, that stoke that fire, that really kind
Mm-hmm.
of bring the flames, that they add the breath of God to that fire.
Yeah,
That say, this
yeah.
is who you are. And I'm sure everybody's experienced this. You have
Oh
somebody
yeah.
who just speaks into your life, and you're like, I'm on, like, yes, I can run through a wall right now.
Yes, yes.
And they're speaking to a place of integrity in your
Mm,
heart, not a
yeah.
place of falsehood in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as leaders in organizations, we have to have this desire and this commitment to becoming who we are because you're going to get asked to be lots of things. There's going to be lots of assumptions made about you. There's going to be lots of opportunities to say you need to present and position in this way.
Mm-hmm.
If you're out of alignment and out of integrity, people are going to sense it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you've encountered that
Oh,
as you're
oh,
coaching and you're like, hey man, that's
100%.
not you. Like I know that's what the expectation is, but that's not you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So so I have two questions because I think there's a connection here in between the hireling, servant, and son, because I think that this space becomes the and having integrity in yourself, and also being integrous creates that in other people. But I believe that there's this, and I'm reaching here. So I really think that you've kind of really thought about this a little further than I could. And it's okay that I'm struggling just a little bit. It's part of the conversations,
Mm-hmm.
actually leading other people to help think about this constructively and critically think through this process. But I think that there is something to be said about, and my question is, how do we get there? Because there is expectations, but when these people come around us that have this integrity of self, um, how do we embrace that when we've embraced something else, or how do we arrive at that place um, of honesty?
That's a good question. I had a mentor one time, one of my earliest mentors in my life, and he always had this phrase, excellence is the standard, grace is the word. And it's just stuck with me forever. Mitch, always strive for excellence, but you have to give yourself grace. I would say the most common stumbling block in anybody's life is yourself.
Mm.
You are way worse on you than anyone else will ever be.
Oh, that's true.
The thoughts, the conversations, the things you accuse and condemn yourself of.
Mm-hmm.
You do that when you're living out of integrity.
Mm-hmm.
You do that more when you're living out of integrity. Getting back and start, sitting down and say, these are the things that I accuse myself of. I would challenge, write that down. Make a list.
Mm-hmm.
What do I accuse me of?
Mm.
Where am I bringing condemnation upon myself?
Mm-hmm.
You're not this enough. You're not doing this well enough. You spend too much time here. You spend not enough time here. And start to see where things are out of alignment with the integrity of who you say you are. I was actually thinking about this just 2 nights ago. Jesus never promised something that he didn't do. We make lots of things where we don't own up to our own word, where
Mm-hmm.
we don't aren't accountable, or we don't have integrity or honor to our own words.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, I was like, what would it look like if everything that I spoke, I followed through on, anything I promised happened, and I never said anything that I wasn't planning to fulfill?
Yeah.
It was really weighing on me. Like it was
Yeah.
just like I felt this heaviness, like not like a guilt heaviness or condemnation heaviness, but like a reverence of like,
Mm-hmm.
look through the word. There's nothing that Jesus said that he was going to do that he didn't,
Mm-hmm.
that he promised he was going to do and never got around to.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't always just intentions, there was always a follow through and fulfillment.
Mm.
What would it look like in our own lives if we started to take our own word, the things we say to ourselves, seriously?
Yeah.
What if I honored me? What if I honored the things I told myself?
Mm-hmm.
How would that change? How would that spill over? How would I start to walk more in integrity and authenticity
Yeah.
and identity?
Yeah. Yeah. So what's really profound to me is that it almost doesn't matter. I mean, I think it does. I think we always have to be leaning into excellence and becoming an expert in our field. But it almost doesn't matter how much you know about your industry. It matters more how you pursue the relationships of your team and staff, customers and clients and vendors. If you can do relationship well and you're authentic with yourself, you're honest, you're not trying to be a persona, you're not trying to over promise, and because when you over
Mm-hmm.
promise you under deliver every time. And so honesty, integrity, it feels to me like relationship is king.
Relationship, I mean, I would go a little bit further because it's intentional. I can have a great relationship with a supervisor and never see him. I can have a great relationship with somebody and
Yeah.
coming to work still is a dread
Mm,
because the culture and the environment is still not in a place. So it takes a lot of intentionality to create culture.
mm-hmm.
Culture, I would say, is outside of relationship. You can't, it's not without it. It has to be involved, but it's not included in relationship. I would say relationship is included in culture. So creating a proper culture where people strive to come to a place because it makes them feel great. They feel comfortable, they feel warm, they feel valued, they feel welcomed. Not because, I've had this in the past where I've had great supervisors and I had great relationships and I would hardly see them. Or it was just something, as long as you're not doing anything wrong, just keep doing what you're doing and you're kind of isolated. And,
Mm.
and all of us, I work in the men's space. If you're in isolation, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Just let me say
Oh,
it.
for sure.
If you don't have a mentor, if you don't have somebody like Scott speaking into your life, praying into your life, you're in trouble. Because if you, as an organization leader, are in isolation, which most of them
Mm-hmm.
are,
Yeah.
you're in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. So my let's just play the devil's advocate a little bit and just turn this into just a brief, a couple of minutes in our last few minutes here, a little bit of a training seminar clinic. My culture is a mess. My organization, I can't hardly get them to show up on time. I'm inefficient. I don't have a good culture. Everything you're saying to me, Mitch, is amazing, sounds great, but where do I begin? Because at this point I feel it's probably better just to close my doors and fire everybody and just start over. So I know that's probably not the right answer, so help me. How do I begin?
You got to take a big long look in the mirror first.
Oh no,
Um,
not that again.
yeah, it starts and ends with you as the leader of the organization.
Okay.
If you can humble yourself, if you can start to have conversations, and you can start to get a pulse on what people actually feel and think, and they can actually speak to you in a way where they don't feel like if I say something, I'm going to get fired.
Oh boy.
Then you can start to make some big transitions.
I have to be approachable.
You've got to have an intentionality to change a culture. So, how can you bring things into the environment? How can you make things more fun? One of the examples we were talking about before we started recording is if you have mentors in your life, if you invest in masterminds, if you invest in coaching in yourself, are you transferring that knowledge into your people? Are you now pouring into them in a way that's not directly related, not a sales training, but we were talking about financials?
Yeah.
If I go to a financial master class and I come back and I'm on fire and I'm going to change my own approach, do I set up a time during lunch hours on Fridays and say, hey, anybody wants to learn about finances, I'm going to share with you what I just learned, and open the door and allow people to come in and learn from you and start to build those things? I've heard and seen organizations do this where they have people coming all the time. I would identify, what are your core values?
Mm-hmm.
Is your core value generosity? Then be more generous. Is your core value family? Then make sure there's family activities going on inside of your workplace.
Mm-hmm.
What are your core foundational values, and tie habits to those? Where are my habits? Do they align? Where are my goals?
Core values aren't core values unless they have an actual action attached to it.
Yeah. So if I plan out my goal session and I don't know how to assign my goals to my core values,
Mm-hmm.
my goals probably aren't going to happen.
Mm.
If I can take this goal and assign it to a core value and tie it to something that is deep within me, that goal is going to happen.
Mm.
It's going to more likelihood of success. But if
Mm-hmm.
I just have goals to have goals, because I'm supposed to have goals, and if I have just marching orders and metrics, and I start to depersonalize everything. But I would just suggest, if you've got a crappy culture, go, what are your core values? And are you instituting any of those in your organization?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not, be intentional. Start with one of them.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not the one that you love the most. Maybe it's the one that they love the most.
Oh, then all of a sudden, like Myron Golden, if he was here, what he would say is, if your job as a CEO is to serve the people around you, whether
Mhm.
it's customers, clients, employees, your job is to not do your favorite thing, but do the most valued or needed thing.
Yeah.
Obsess over other people's problems, and you will always find yourself in the place of success.
Yeah.
And I love that, but it transitions from, I'm trying to support my family and the breadwinner, to all of a sudden now I get to be the solution generator to the people around me. It changes the game. When you change the narrative, it changes the game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I call it value mapping. So when you can write down your cultures and you can start attaching goals and habits to your core values, then now you're value mapping. And now you can build something a little bit different for an organization.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I just think that there's so much more to talk about, and we should do another one as soon as we get an opportunity. We should do another podcast and kind of. I just love these organic conversations. I didn't know where we were going to go. We're just like, oh man, this is a great conversation. We should just record it. So, but let's do this in these last couple of minutes. What would be your recap of our time together right now on this
Oh, that's a good
podcast?
one. I would say vision
Mm-hmm.
as a leader is very crucial. Not just casting vision, but how you see.
Mm-hmm.
How are you viewing your employees? How are you viewing those people within your organization, your vendors, your clients, your customers? Are you seeing them through the correct lenses?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you and I were both wearing glasses. If I dip this in a bunch of mud and I stick it back in my eyes, my vision is going to be
Impaired.
impaired drastically. If I'm seeing life through a political vision, if I'm seeing life through a religious vision, if I'm seeing life through whatever type of vision you want to put it out there, if I'm not allowing the Lord's vision to direct who I see in front of me,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to create wedges. I'm going to be the stumbling block in my organization.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to ever be able to go past what I see them.
Mm-hmm.
How did the Lord see Jesus?
Yeah.
How does
Perfectly.
Jesus see us?
Agape love.
He sees all of our potential,
Mm-hmm.
everything that we could possibly be.
Mm-hmm.
And so in him, we're able to accomplish these.
Mm-hmm.
If I see you in a certain way and I put limits and gates and barriers around who you are in my organization, then
Mm-hmm.
nobody's ever going to get past that.
Yeah.
So I would start with vision. I would say, how are you looking at the people in your organization? And remove the expectations off of the people that shouldn't have them.
Mm-hmm.
If you have hirelings and they're doing a great job, let them do a great job. Don't expect this undying loyalty for people who aren't supposed to be there. They're just here
Properly
for a season.
define the relationship
Right.
of your employees, your team.
Look for those people who are becoming servants, who are giving you their heart and they're putting
We can
more
apply
effort.
this metric actually to the our clients that we're serving too,
Mhm.
because there's some people that are there just because it's the product that they need, but some people are there because it's me, and
Mhm.
some people are there because they're loyal to the vision. So I would imagine you can apply this same metric of hireling, servant, and son to even customers and clients.
Yeah, I do it in the church too with disciple, servant, and son. That's a whole nother conversation, a whole nother topic.
Oh boy, we need you just opened a can of worms. Okay, we'll put a pin in that one because we need to talk about. I want to talk about discipleship in the marketplace too, because I'm doing this conversation all over. So, but for right now, I think that's good. I loved our conversation today. Thank you for your time, Mitch. And I'm gonna link so that people can get a hold of
Sure,
you,
sure.
and a link to your book and to the wilderness experience.
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
so I think that'll be fun. But until next time, I think I can't wait till the next conversation. So thank you guys for following along in this very organic, unplanned conversation. And sometimes I love having these organic conversations. As if you've been following the prayer focus for any time at all, you know that all of these conversations are unscripted. We have a plan. We go in, hey, let's talk about this, and we did that again today. We're like, man, I love this conversation. We sat here in front of the camera and said, okay, I don't know what we're gonna say, but I know one. Here's some keywords. This is where I want to really gonna go after. And so I think we really hit those targets for today. I really appreciate. This is a dialogue. Although we can't hear what you say, we can read your comments. So we ask that you would comment, share. We'd love people sharing the conversations that we are having. So again, I really appreciate you following along in the conversation. And until the next episode, remember to embrace who God has made you to be. Sonship, beloved identity is your inheritance. So blessings, and we'll see you on the next episode.